Last time we left it when the Turks conquered that part of the world, Greece, and so on and so forth, at 1453. So between 1453 to 1832, where the Ottomans control Greeks, the Jews were somewhat free to practice their Judaism because of somewhat tolerance, which was unique at the time, and to a certain extent unique nowadays, of the Turks themselves. So there was a good period of time, and that's where the Jews in Greece actually flourished tremendously. But you should know that immediately after the expulsion from Spain, the community of Greece grew in like beyond leaps and bounds. I mean, tremendously. The community of Greece accepted a lot of those exiles from Spain and Portugal. And I'm saying Portugal especially because they did have different kehilot. The kehilot, the synagogues, they had names, but many times the names were after the place they were from. For example, as we said with the time in Izmir, the same thing happens in Saloniki, Kehal Girush, Portugal, Seville, and so on and so forth, Castilla, and so on and so forth. Later on, it kind of lost its maybe authentic character, became more uniform Sephardic, but nevertheless, they established their own places there, and it was a tremendous boost for those communities. In Greece, and especially in Saloniki, which maybe we'll do a segment by itself, most of the leaders of the Spanish Jewry settled down. It was a good place to be in. It was an entrance to the Middle East, to the East also, and to Europe. To go from Greece to Hungary is, relatively speaking, a piece of cake. You would find a lot of, for example, Hungarian Jews who are really dark-skinned, and that descendants of Sephardic Jews. They came. I know in the city of Mattersdorf they had what they used to call a Sephardic parochet, which was a beautiful parochet that was donated. So the story goes by the people who were expelled from Spain, and it was all made with jewels and rubies and so on and so forth. Of course, robbed and destroyed by the Holocaust, by the Nazis. But there were so they did business, and they did business. They flourished. Community became stronger. There were schools. Some of the most prominent yeshivot were in Greece. Again, we'll expand a little bit more about that when we do other segments. But in Saloniki, there were tremendous yeshivot. The Chacham Tzvi, which later on became the chief rabbi of Holland, was completely influenced by those Sephardic yeshivot to the point that he changed his name from rabbi to Chacham. It's called Chacham Tzvi. Those yeshivot helped in shaping what we have today, the yeshiva world, which, for whatever reason, does not get any accreditation whatsoever in Jewish acknowledgement of Jewish history. The contribution of those yeshivot was tremendous. And it was all in Greece, in that part of the world. Ladino was a language you heard anywhere. If in Saloniki there were 60,000 Jews living there, you bet you that you heard Ladino anywhere you went. There were many Ashkenazim that settled down in Greece and became a part of that, as much as there were in Izmir, right? In Izmir there was a kehillah, they call it the kehillah del Nichlis, the Ashkenazim, the Ashkenazi kehillah. And in Saloniki as well, there were there were European Jews, Eastern European Jews that came to Greece, settled down to Saloniki, a place like this, settled down and stayed there. Saloniki, since it was more under Turkish ruling than longer Turkish ruling than Athens, became more prominent because of the tolerance of them. They were in close proximity with there were great contacts with the poskim, the great poskim of Turkey, to the way that they were almost like twin communities. We mentioned where in 1650 and so on, when the Turks did their own ethnic cleansing, a lot of the Jews from Saloniki moved to Izmir, and Greeks from Izmir went to Saloniki, and that even helped more to negotiate this special character of those communities. The islands as well, the islands of Corfu and Rhodes and Crete and so on. So even though they were Roman youth, still that was a thriving place of Torah. I'm really amazed how we neglected all the time to acknowledge that greatness that was there, unique communities, unique historical periods in the history of Am Yisrael of unbelievable flourishing and beauty that it's unfortunately not being taught. Unfortunately not being taught. Most of the times the Jews were in better terms with the Turks rather than the Greeks. And again, Saloniki, the city of Saloniki, there were a lot of Turks that lived there. And again, that was the reason why Saloniki most likely became so big rather than other places in Greece, regardless of the fact that there were Jews there from way back then. But it was through that tolerance. 1821, the Greeks rebel against the Turks in the famous War of Independence of the Greeks. They call it Ikusiena. Ikusiena means 21. There's a famous song and so on and so forth. Most of the Greek Jews were pro-Turkish. As a result of that, 5,000 Jews were murdered and butchered in the peninsula of Peloponnesus because of their great support of the Turks in that. They butchered them. Every time the Greeks fought the Turks, usually the Jews suffered. Even in Izmir, when they were fighting the Turks, the Jews were suffering. As a result of that, many Greek Jews simply migrated to other countries. The United States was a destiny that a lot of Greek Jews migrated to. Some Turkish Jews as well. And believe it or not, they settled down in places always by the ocean. They always settled down by the ocean. So if it was Long Beach on Long Island, and then Miami in the south, a lot of them also migrated to Seattle. There's an ocean, Jews are there. I don't know why they like the ocean. But a lot of them migrated to the United States. I know there were some Greek Jews that migrated to Minnesota and Minneapolis and places like that, and Chicago as well. Because there were also Greeks that migrated to Chicago. There were a lot of Greeks in Chicago. Jews migrated there. It was less of a cultural shock to those people. In the Easter of 1847, there was tremendous anti-Semitic pogroms. That as a result, there was a famous Jew by the name of David Pacifico. He was a gay trader, and he had a British citizenship. As a result of that, the British government put a naval blockade of 2 years on Greece until the Greek government was willing to accommodate this David Pacifico and actually give him back to that. Again, I think it's not only unique in the history of Greece, also unique in the history of England that they somewhere coming to the aid of a Jew. During World War II, On a survey that was done in 1941, in Greece were close to 79,000 Jews. Out of them, 55 live in the city of Saloniki, 3,000 lived in Corfu, 3,000 live in Kavala. Kavala is a city in which my godfather, Alav Shalom, came from. That's why his name was Kavalika. Kavalika is the name of Kavala. He came from Kavala. As a wonderful man. I love them like I love the father. Unbelievable person. Holocaust survivor. Worked in the crematorium in Auschwitz-Birkenau. A Kohen, and to him, I was his child. Any chance that I have to speak about this man, I do. It's unbelievable. So, 3,000 lived in Yanina, 2,500 live in Athens, and 1,200 more live in Larissa, 900 live in Castoria, 900 in Velefos, 500 in Trikila, 400 in Florina, and 325 in Chalikis. During World War II, the Italians they didn't succeed, take over Greece. The Bulgarians tried, and then the Nazis came. In 1941, those miserable beasts, the Nazis, took over Greece. About 46 to 48,000 of the Jews of Saloniki were sent to Auschwitz. Most of them were murdered there. Some of them worked in the crematorium. It was very hard for these people. They came from a Mediterranean country where it was hot. They spoke the language. They came here. It was cold. They didn't speak the language. The other Jews looked at them as like foreigners. They didn't look at them as Jews. It was very difficult. Overall, in the Holocaust, over 60,000 Greek Jews were butchered. So that would make about over 80% of that. And something like 96% of the Jews of Saloniki were exterminated in the Holocaust. The survivors that were found immediately after the war in Greece were about 10,000. Most of them gathered in Athens, Saloniki, and Larissa. When they came back to their own cities, you should know, don't think that if you held the deed to your house for 500 years, it did any good to you. Because when they came back, they had no houses there. Many of them were killed by the Greeks who took over their own houses, they took over their own property, and everything else that was there. I don't have great sympathy to the Greeks. After suffering that, to come back and to be killed in your house, I don't know. In 1945, there were about 5,000 Jews in Athens, and in Saloniki only 2,000 Jews. Most of them migrated to Israel. Most of them. They settled down as hubs. A lot of them they came to British. All those British, those miserable Brits, did not allow them to come into Israel. So they came with boats offshore. Some drowned, but they came offshore. They established kibbutzim, moshavim. Many of them settled in Haifa. Most of them settled in Tel Aviv. They worked as porters in the port of Tel Aviv, and later on they became real professional schleppers with unbelievable expertise. When you had an impossible job to do, you called the Saloniki Jews. Oh, they would move you in. They were strong. 1948, a lot of them were sent to the war. A lot of them sent to Gush Etzion to fight. They didn't speak a word of Hebrew, but they were sent to fight. And I remember the story that this guy, Sabi Kavalika, Shabbetai Cohen told me, he said, I said to him, weren't you upset? You just came and they sent you to fight. He says, I didn't care. Give me a gun. I said, this time I'm not going to die like this. If I die, it's going to be with a gun in my head. So after his bullets were done, and the Jordanian legion came, the professional, he took the gun and swung it at them like a baseball bat. They went to jail. They were all POWs. And unfortunately, even there, until today, among those who are preserving the heritage of Gush Etzion, there is little remembrance of the Saloniki Jews, usually is not a pleasant one, which is a crime. But I don't like them either. Because what these people did, and then to badmouth them that they used to steal food, they were survivors. But they came in. They settled down in Tel Aviv, many of them in areas of what is called Rehov Kishon. You went there, let me tell you, they built shuls. It was like little Saloniki, that area over there at the time. A lot of them migrated to the United States, some to Canada and Australia, and so on and so forth. Today, the Jewish community in Greece has about 5,500 Jews, some of them, but most of them live in Athens. About 3,500 live in Athens, about 1,000 in Saloniki. Some small communities exist in Larissa, in Corfu, in Yanina, in Rhodes, and so on and so forth. Very few places. If you go to Israel, there's a place called Tzur Moshe, was established in 1937 mainly by Greek Jews. And of course, we're going to talk about Saloniki at some other time. And that's it for today. Boys and girls, stay out of trouble. Learn your history, preserve it, and correct all wrongdoing. Have a great day, and Chanukah Sameach.